Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, everyone. Last week we spoke about what women can do, or rather, we started with what men can do to keep the relationship, the marriage, sexually interesting. And then we touched a little bit on what women can do towards the same end. Now, just to give a brief overview recap, in the very first episode, we emphasized that each party, man and woman in the relationship, must take responsibility for the sexual nature of the relationship, meaning whether the relationship dies or whether the relationship perpetuates and remains sexually exciting is the responsibility of both parties. Okay, we often find that usually one party blames the other party. Normally it is the female who blames the male and says, look, he doesn't do me properly, and hence I am bored and also unsatisfied. But it's usually never the other way around, that women take the responsibility or think that there can possibly be any reason for that other than the man's inexperience, the man's inconsideration, the man's etc etc etc. And of course that is a step in the wrong direction, because if you want things to work, you have to ask yourself, what can I do? In a relationship, you cannot control the other person. Not in reality. You may try to. You may think you're succeeding, but you can't actually control the person, because even when your partner, your husband or wife, is compliant with your wishes, eventually they will build up some sort of resentment for having to comply. Okay, so it must come from, if you want any change in your relationship, it must come from you. Okay, it cannot be that you are trying to change your partner, and that's very important also when it comes to the sexual intimacy in the relationship. So let's jump into what the woman can do to keep the sexual intimacy strong throughout the marriage. Okay, so we do obviously have the normal situation taking place with most couples, where things are very exciting in the beginning when they are sort of getting to know each other. The husband is very much interested in his new bride, and then things peter out with time, either because the wife falls pregnant and now she has a child, and her main focus is on the child and or children, and she's just not that interested in humoring her husband, and so it becomes sort of obvious to the man. Okay, so what happens is, and you can see there's a lot of relationship dynamics like that. Usually they demonstrate this, a lot in comedy, in movies, in on social media, where the man is always wanting to have sex with the wife, and the wife is sort of trying to escape that situation, and she's women even say it, they're like, why must he want something from me? If he, for example, gives me a back rub, why must he want something? Why must he always want to sleep with me? Imagine that's like a complaint, that a lot of women have. And then incidentally, on the flip side of the coin, there's the woman who have the opposite complaint. Okay, he's not interested in me, he doesn't want to sleep with me. And so you have these kinds of, it's either he wants to sleep with me too much, or he doesn't want to sleep with me at all. And there's just like, there isn't something that a woman will not complain about sexually. Okay, and so let's start there. The first thing you can do as a woman to keep your relationship sexually interesting is to try not complaining about how often your husband wants to sleep with you, especially when he wants to sleep with you often. You need to ask yourself, how would you feel if he actually didn't want to sleep with me at all? Or it was the reverse. I had the reverse scenario where this man never approaches me and never wants to do this with me actually. And when I try to approach him as the wife, then he shuts me down. Some women say that. Some women complain about that. So if you have a husband who always wants to sleep with you, say alhamdulillah, okay, and be happy that you don't have the reverse problem. Okay, don't complain about it. Don't say, oh, this man, he just wants to. Okay, that's a good thing actually. Okay. Secondly, to keep things interesting, you have to also actively seduce your husband. You get a lot of women, especially in the more conservative cultures, where they think that it is somehow wrong to want sex from your husband, or to overtly show that you want sex from your husband, because he may think lesser of you, he may think you're a bitch, or he may question what you were doing before the marriage, etc., etc. When you decide to be more sexually adventurous with him, right, or approach him, right? And that is not always true. And in those cultures where that may be true, there are ways you can go about it, and I'm going to detail that here now. And that is to say, okay, if that is your worry, you do it gradually. You show sexual adventure in stages, okay? And you document where you found out about it. So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, okay, in the beginning, you will maybe act all shy and coy because you're supposedly a virgin, right? And you don't know anything. And so it's probably going to be where you just surrender yourself and lie on your back and wait until it's over kind of thing. Because, I mean, what more would you know? Okay, I get it. I get you got to play that game, okay? But then what you can do as time goes on is that you can actually go to ChatGPT, or you can go online, do some research, learn some more things about sex, and actually say that that's what you're doing. I'm learning these things about, and I want to try X, Y, and Z. Okay? So you can actually yourself show some adventure, and you can document where you find that from, where you found that from, for example. Because remember, your sexual fulfillment in the relationship is also his sexual fulfillment in the relationship, actually. Well, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Okay? As much as you think, and a lot of people think this, even some men may think this, that as long as they can get off, they okay. So even if his wife just lies there like a dead corpse that he's doing, and he comes, so then your job done, right? He was satisfied, and that's it, job done, right? And a lot of people think that then that must mean that is what sex is, and so therefore you are fulfilling your husband's rights by lying as a dead corpse on the bed. and letting him come, basically, right? And I think nothing could be further from the truth, in fact, because that is actually, from your husband's perspective, that is him fulfilling himself or trying to fulfill himself sexually with the only woman he's allowed to sleep with. Okay? That is not him fulfilling himself sexually in a way that is truly satisfying. Right? And so that's why he's putting up with your corpse style of having sex. Okay? Not because that would have been what he likes. And so you need to get that out of your head as a woman. If that's what you're thinking, oh, my husband just wants to have sex all the time, so let me just roll over, lie on my back, and let him get done, kind of thing. That's not. That's only a small part of what he actually wants. Okay. But now you might say, okay, well, how can I act enthusiastic or be enthusiastic when I really am not? Okay, that might speak to some bigger issue in the relationship, of course. Like I say, sex is concluded in the bedroom only, but it's the constant flirtation that builds up that tension in the relationship when you are doing other things. Okay. And so you might have actually a bigger problem, okay? But what you can do as a woman to keep your husband interested in you, and also this would be in your best interest, because men stray very easily, and there are plenty of women out there that are trying to seduce your husband, okay? Just by virtue of him being married, okay? A lot of women, in fact a good number, possibly the majority of women, are quietly more interested in married men than they are in single men, although they would never say that out loud, okay? So the minute you have a husband, your husband's at risk of straying, like almost immediately, okay, in today's highly single world, okay, where most women out there are single, right? So, and looking to not commit, and hence finding married men attractive because they know the married man can't fully invest in a side chick because it will undermine his family, and they only want a partial investment because they don't want to have to fully invest either in a man, because they have other things going like careers and this and that and lifestyle, and they don't want a man to cramp their lifestyle. So they just need certain very basic things. They also don't want to be cheated on, because a lot of women experience being cheated on, but a married man can't very well cheat on you because it's built in the agreement, basically, right? I mean, a lot of these women who go for married men, they're happy that they know where the married man is when he's not with her, right? I mean, then obviously he's with his wife, and so there's a lot of women out there who prefer to be the side chick. So if you know that, and these women have more time on their hands, they don't have children, they go to gym, they have careers, they dress to the nines, etc. They have so much that they can do to successfully seduce your husband, right? So you need to, so you in competition, basically, okay? And it's a competition that you can very easily win with a little bit of effort on your part, and that is something you need to keep in mind. Okay, so this thing that, oh, I just don't feel enthusiastic about having to sleep with my husband almost every day. I don't feel enthusiastic about my husband, about having to try to seduce my husband or approach him, or I'm just not that interested in sex, is not going to cut it, okay? you are the reason for all those things is because you already have what you've wanted out of the relationship, which is the stability, the house, the children, the lifestyle. And because he's giving you all that, you now feel that you don't no longer need to give him the thing that ranked quite highly for him, like, which was the sex. Sex is very important to men, right? So that's what it is. It's you're being selfish, actually. So what you need to do is you need to realize that relationships are transactional, and part of the transactionality of the relationship is sex when he wants it, how he wants it, and how he likes it. And you need to make sure that you know what that is, and you need to keep things spicy. And you can do that, and you can introduce that without appearing to be a bitch. A bitch is like bitch is used in certain parts of the world, not in the same way that it's used in other parts of the world. In some parts of the world, it means a nasty woman. And then again, in other parts of the world, it means a loose woman. Okay, so of course you don't want to come across as having sexual experience and being a loose woman, etc., etc. So what you do is you introduce the spice gradually and in relation to what you are reading about and researching and trying out. Okay, because the fact is that men have this fantasy that is totally conflicting and contradictory. Okay, on the one hand, yes, they want the virgin, yes, they want the good girl, yes, they want that woman to be the mother of their children, and they want that woman to raise their daughters upon those values, those good values, those homely values. On the other hand, they'd like to sleep with the woman who has supposedly got a wealth of sexual experience and who just knows how to do it right. Okay? They also want the woman in the miniskirt with the red high heels on. That's job is to satisfy a man, please a man. They want that woman also. Okay? But they can't marry that woman. They don't want that woman to marry. They only want that woman to fuck. But you obviously don't want your husband to go and fuck those women. So you need to learn to be that woman also. And you can do it. Okay? It doesn't mean you're only going to be that woman in the privacy of your bedroom or your home. You're not going to be that woman outside. And so you can do it. You can role play it, because that's the fantasy of almost every man. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Okay? That's the one thing. Okay? Then I also want to just add something else, another layer to this discussion. And that is seduction, how seduction works. Seduction works when there is intrigue and mystery and all those things you had going into the relationship. Okay? When you were covered and your husband has never seen you, and he managed to catch a glimpse of your ankles or your foot or your hand, or I don't know, if you're a veiled woman, if you have niqab on, he managed to see a little bit of your mouth or something. All those things turned him on. Ironically, although it's not much to see, but it turned him on because there's intrigue. Okay? The veil and the covering is actually part of seduction, incidentally, because it leaves a lot for the imagination. Okay? It has men wondering what's beneath it. Okay? And that's part of the seduction. Now, this happens obviously before you're married. But once you're married, okay, so now your husband gets to see you completely naked. What does this do? Well, it takes away the intrigue. Okay? And then things start to become normal, and then the desire that he has to want to sleep with you starts to fade because it's now normal. And this is kind of what happens in human relations. Okay, so what you can do to try and retain some of that intrigue is to be a bit more subtle. You know, some women just, they don't have any culture or finesse or something, you know, and they'll just sort of like chuck their clothes off and then like, yalla, let's go kind of thing. Okay, that may be okay in the beginning, but in the long run, that's not going to get you very far. Okay, what you need to do is you need to be subtle in the same way that the veil and the abaya is intriguing. You need to be subtle through how you dress. Okay, so dressing is important. Dressing up for your husband is important, and also covering yourself is important. So I mean, that's what clothes do, right? It covers you. It's not helpful in the long run for foreplay to just get naked, because that's effortless. There's no effort that goes into that. Okay, so learn some techniques of seduction that are very, very ancient and found within various cultures. For example, in some Indian cultures, for example, the sari that Indian women wear is used as a sort of a veil that hides away the woman, but then the woman lets her curves be known through the veil. Okay, so this is the way the Indian women flirt with men. Obviously, this is a flirtation sort of device, right? Along with the sari, and how the sari is thrown, and how it caresses the body, and how her body moves underneath that sari is a type of mating ritual, like flirtation device, right? The same with the Muslim woman who wear abaya can be used in the same way, right? They do it, of course, and so these are like external measures, right? This is the flirtation devices women use outside, but inside it's no different, right? It's just because you're married to the man doesn't mean you stop using flirtation devices, right? Dressing up, dresses, dancing, you can dance, you know. I mean, this also, I mean, the other thing, guys, I mean, I want to say that there's no harm in dancing in your house with the members of your family, and especially on also dancing for your husband, you know. Why not do it, you know? I mean, if you don't want him to look at some other woman doing ballet dancing, for example, if you're an Arab woman, you don't want him to go sit and watch dancing girls, right? So you do the dancing, right? Invest in seduction is what I'm saying. Invest in seduction. Be that woman that invest in seduction, and always sort of work on being better at it, because the women in the world are working daily to seduce him. Okay, and then there's you. So, and you want to be the one that captures his interest and that keeps his interest, and as much as his morality is supposed to hold him within the relationship, you don't want your husband to just be there on the basis of morality. You don't want your husband to, oh, he's with me because he's a good Muslim, and the reason why he doesn't look at and sleep with other women is because he's a good Muslim. You also want him to be there because he wants to be there, and you want him to sleep with you because he really wants to sleep with you. So these are things that you need to take responsibility for. If there's any questions, You can ask me on X. Also, I'm gonna put this on Rumble and on YouTube and wherever else, and on Facebook. So like, subscribe, and share. This is a very important topic. I know people either love to talk about sex or they frown on talking about sex. Either way, whatever your sort of thing is, I'm doing it because everything around sex that's spoken about or that's engaged in is about illicit sex. It's about seducing multiple women for one night stands. It's about game. It's about basically immorality. Okay? And the thing is, we stem out the tide. We stop immorality in its tracks when we start making sex good within marriage. Okay? And that's why it is actually a sacred duty to do that. Thank you very much.